Welcome, everyone. I want to thank you for joining today's webinar, Traveler Engagement, Embracing a New Value Proposition, produced by a business travel executive as a part of our Going Deeper webinar series and sponsored by Chrome River. So welcome, everyone. I am Jennifer Steinke. I'm going to be the monitor for today's webinar. I manage corporate travel for DICOM Industries, have been in the industry for 29 going on 30 years. I currently sit on the board of directors at GBTA, lead the BTE, Business Travel Executive Think Tank, as well as some other associations and advisory boards. And I'm super passionate about traveler engagement and the traveler experience. I'm very, very excited to host this webinar today and have some great sponsors as well as some panelists. So we couldn't make this webinar happen without our sponsor, Chrome River. So thank you to Chrome River for all of your support. For those of you that are not familiar with Chrome River, they provide expense and invoice management solutions that let business flow. Chrome River's solutions span 600 plus customers across 100 countries and are trusted by more than 1 million users worldwide. So the Chrome River suite is modern, easy to use, totally mobile to work anywhere, anytime on any device. So thank you again for sponsoring the first of many Going Deeper webinars with Business Travel Executive Magazine. We have a packed agenda today, so let's get started. We know your time is valuable, and we do want to make sure that we've allowed time for Q&A at the end. Our agenda for today, we're going to cover 2 case stories, and I'm going to introduce our panelists here in a moment, and then talk about tools and technology that are influencing traveler engagement, and then really get some insight into where our panelists, as well as myself, see the future of traveler engagement. So if you want to sit back, relax, enjoy the content, feel free to pop in those questions at any time so we can get to them at the end. And with that, I'm excited to have joining us today 2 amazing travel buyers. First, let me introduce who will be sharing their stories of traveler engagement. Jennie Robertson. Jennie Robertson is the Senior Global Travel Manager at Tableau Software located in Seattle. She's responsible for travel operations in 10 countries. She began her career as an on-site travel agent 20 years ago, transitioning into travel management in 2003. Jennie's a vocal advocate for Tableau travelers, always searching to improve the traveler experience by examining policies, leveraging new technologies, including Tableau, and advocating for online booking tool enhancements and actively participating in her TMC's Customer Advisory Board. Jennie, thanks for joining us today. In addition to Jennie, we have Cheryl Benjamin. She's the Manager of Travel Services at Dart Container. And Dart's an international manufacturing company headquartered in Mason, Michigan. She's going to share with us a little bit about her program, too. She's been involved in the travel industry since 1988. Cheryl joined Dart in 2001. And as a manager of a growing travel department, and upon recognizing the savings and efficiencies to be gained, she successfully lobbied to create the CTD in 2006. And for those of you that are not familiar with that term, it is an in-house ARC-accredited corporate travel department. So her CTD team is responsible for handling business travel needs for DART associates worldwide, including meeting planning, contract negotiations, fleet management, corporate housing, relocation, establishing travel policy, expense reporting, and scheduling corporate aircraft. And if that's not keeping Cheryl busy enough, she serves as a member of ACT's U.S. Council, has served on industry advisory boards, and is the past chairman of the Corporate Travel Department Association. So welcome, Cheryl. We are so excited to have you and Jennie join us today and kind of share your experiences. And we can't ignore the fact that, right now, traveler engagement is becoming a more critical component in the corporate travel industry today. Our travelers are desiring more personalized experience, one that they can most often create for themselves. And so what happens is the challenge becomes, how do we as travel buyers become a part of the life cycle of the trip and create a better experience for our travelers, as well as capture the data around personalization and use it to sculpt our travel programs. And you'll see the different stories of what Jennie's doing and what Cheryl's doing and some of the things that I'm doing in my program, and how they may look very, very different, but at the end of the day, they're all really about how we better engage with our travelers and create better experiences. And technology helps drive this, right? It's opening up some pretty exciting doors for us. but it can also create a lot of challenges. We have this new generation of travelers entering the workforce. Everybody's heard the word millennials. These folks, like, they grew up with everything at their fingertips. Most of them have never even thought about using an encyclopedia to research something, nor do they even know what an encyclopedia is at some cases. So, they've got this instantaneous delivery of information to their devices, more information than any of us could ever have imagined. And that is what's driving the choices that they're making. But we're not always sure if they're the best choices for our travel program. So maybe they are, maybe they're not. And I think what we'll see as we go through these different case studies is, is technology driving this? Is policy driving it? What are we using data for? And how can we kind of create a better value proposition, both for the managed travel program and for our travelers? So let's get started, and let's hop on over to Jennie from Tableau, and we will have, I forgot about our poll. Silly me. One of the things we want to do is kind of engage with our audience. And so we're going to open up a poll that is really, the question is, how critical is traveler experience engagement in order to drive your overall program goals? So basically, we're going to open this up for about 20 seconds. Just use your mouse, click on whichever selection, whether it's extremely important, somewhat important, not really focused on it yet, or it wouldn't make any difference in my program, because I'd really like to kind of understand, like, what is the audience thinking about traveler experience and engagement? So we'll give it about 20 seconds here for everyone to respond to the poll, and then we'll talk about the results. And thanks to everyone who participates in the poll, because it gives us some really good information about, where you are in your programs and whether you think it's important or not. And we're going to go ahead and, again, if one last chance for everyone to select one of their options, and we'll go ahead and close the poll now, and let's see what the results look like. Interesting. So, great audience, right? It's extremely important. More than 50% of the people think that it's extremely important for their programs. And I think that it's critical that as buyers and suppliers that we start to understand really, the impacts of the traveler experience engagement is happening. So thank you so much for that poll. We'll close that poll now. And we'll move on to Jennie talking about her program at Tableau. All right.
Hello.
So, Jennie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit, just give us some background about your program, your spend, kind of how you operate, and then we'll talk a little bit about, what the initiatives are that you have going on at Tableau.
Excellent. So Tableau software, our mission is to help people see and understand their data. We are a data visualization company. The company began in the computer science department at Stanford. The company was founded in 2003. Our headquarters are in Seattle, Washington. We have about 3,000 employees. And then in terms of volume, just to give context, we do about 10 million in air, about 9 million in hotel. And that does include, especially on the hotel side, meetings and air, because actually we have a lot of people who travel for our meetings as well. In terms of our department, how we are structured, we are a department of two. We really are a customer service department versus police. We're there to support the travelers and provide guidance, especially a lot of our questions are around the policy and how people can, stay in policy and do what they want to do. And then we have about 90% adoption of our online booking tool for air and about 50% for hotel. There's a lot more viable reasons why someone may need to book a hotel outside of our online booking tool.
Interesting. So you're a technology company, right? We actually use Tableau here at DICOM, but I bet you have a lot of millennial travelers. Is that the case? And
that is the case. Yes.
Right.
I know a lot of technology companies as well. We have a lot of recruiting right out of college. So yes, we definitely have a pretty young workforce and a lot of millennials in our workforce.
So I'm guessing that has an impact on some of the things you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing and kind of, what is your story on how you engage with travelers? And maybe let's start with your kind of policy, how you're doing it culturally and making it work for you guys.
So our travel policy looks very much like any other travel policy. It's, quite long and and very detailed. However, culture is very important at Tableau. So it's really about how we're taking the T&E policy and really applying it to work within our culture. The policy applies to everyone with very few exceptions. Everyone at Tableau is invested. The better we do as a company, the better for everyone. And I think people understand that. A tool that we found helps us with engagement is that the travel department are the only people who review the out of policy notifications that come through our online booking tool, and this helps culturally. It also keeps the business flowing. Managers are already overtasked. I mean, everybody is just, working like crazy. Asking them to translate out of policies that, they don't necessarily make sense to them. It takes their valuable time. They already don't have enough of that, and they get a million emails. We are the experts, and we know when something is truly out of policy or not. For example, if it's just that there's a citywide in that city, and so they couldn't find a hotel less than $600 a night. They just didn't search properly, put in kind of the wrong parameters. So we're able to translate that pretty easily and quickly. We always try to err on the side of the traveler. We approach out of policy discussions with an open mind. We do want to stay the good guys and show that we're looking out for them while still enforcing policy and, of course, saving the company money. If we need to escalate, we will go to their manager or we'll go to finance. We try to get somebody else to really, put the hammer down. But ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone knows that travel is not fun. They'd rather be home with their family and sleeping in their own bed. And we really do try to keep that in mind while enforcing our policy.
So it seems to me, Jennie, that you're applying a common sense approach to policy. And that is really creating an atmosphere of you being more approachable and able to really engage with your travelers, not so much on a travel police side of things, but more as that trusted advisor. So are you getting better responses from your travelers? Are they understanding that you are more of a trusted advisor than the travel police?
We think so, and we hope so. I mean, that really is the goal for us. We're always encouraging people to contact us. I mean, it's we'll be in an event where people, we can kind of hear people talking, and we'll hear someone say, oh, I had this experience, blah blah blah, and then we'll look at them and say, well, why didn't you reach out to us? Like, that's what we're here for. And maybe I didn't know. So we are trying to always encourage people to reach out to us first. The last thing we want them to do is complain in silence.
Right. Of course, and we all know that happens. So another approach you take is this concept, and it's been in the press a lot lately about this leisure thing, blending business and leisure, and I've done it. A lot of us have. So, briefly kind of talk to me a little bit about what you're doing in that area and how you're making it a little bit more easier, I guess, for travelers to kind of combine their personal and business life.
Well, it's funny you mentioned in the press. Literally yesterday, I saw an article all about bleisure, and it was actually a study. It was a case study. I think it was 50 pages long with charts and graphs and stats. So bleisure is happening. If anyone doesn't either think it is or hasn't made a way to kind of incorporate it into your program, it's in there. Anyway, we have found and have done kind of research around this that at least 30% of our travelers are deviating, especially for company meetings. We see it a lot in that form because we have a couple instances a year where we have many, if not most, of our people traveling for a couple big meetings. So we had to get in front of it. And we knew this pretty quickly. So we have a standard process that explains how to determine if they're going to owe us money, or if everything is the same, then it's fine, the same or less. And that happens a lot. For example, from London to Seattle with no Saturday night stay is about twice the cost as it is with a Saturday. So yeah, great. stay a Saturday night.
Right.
We're not going to pay for your hotel, but no problem there, extending your trip. And then so we had to come up with a way to allow for it, and even procedurally, if they do owe us money, we came up with a method to pretty quickly track it and facilitate a payroll deduction. If they, because you can't do split payments within travel, it's very difficult. So we allow for that. And then the same thing, if somebody wants to upgrade their ticket and pay that cost out of pocket, we'll work with them to try to figure out how to do that.
So upgrades, it's interesting. It kind of brings us to your next topic, which is that you are an all-coach airfare company, even internationally. So
correct.
That saves money, I'm sure, but I'm not sure that everybody believes that would be the best travel experience, especially on those long-haul flights. So tell us what you do and how you've advocated to kind of create a better experience when it comes to your international travel or even long-haul domestic stuff.
Yeah, when I started, so I've been with Tableau for 5 years, just about, almost exactly. And when I began, we really were still in that startup culture, and a lot of tech companies. It's common. You have, it's kind of the cheap route, all coach, even international. So we recently revised the travel policy, and we did include an allowance to upgrade to premium economy. It's not much. I mean, a lot of people recognize that you really can't upgrade to premium economy for $500. But again, we're pretty. We look at this. If it's close, then we let that go. And if it's say it's $800 or $1,000, we again enable. We have come up with a way for them to easily pay that difference out of pocket if they do want to do premium economy. But we just went through and provided the analysis, and I gave it to our executives, and they said, yeah, I think this is good.
So it seems to me in your program that advocacy for your travelers is what's driving some of that engagement. And I think as we were prepping for the webinar, you told me this story about how your management team thought it would be a really great idea for company events that you would buddy up and share hotel rooms. And, that's interesting. So what did you do to kind of combat that?
Well, you can imagine that wasn't a really popular decision, especially for our conference, our Tableau conference. We staff our conference. That's one of the ones I was mentioning where we have a lot of people traveling. So we expect everyone to wake up in the morning with their best face forward because they are out there engaging with our customers, and our customers are what it's all about. So having that experience of a shared room at that event was not, didn't go well. And we did do this a couple times. And we are the ones on the front line. We're having to work with the travelers. We're hearing the complaints. We know all of the issues. So at the end of our last conference, we went through and actually incorporated some of these questions into the survey so that we had the data, and we were able to put a whole presentation together and put that back to the C-level that the savings really was not great enough to outweigh the discomfort to travelers, because it is a very personal thing. And we were able to get the policy changed. We do solicit for voluntary roommating because, like I said, we have a lot of millennial travelers that they're buddies and they maybe don't see each other all year. And so we allow people to room together if they want to, and then we come up with some kind of gift or reward for them if they choose to do that.
Interesting. Good concept, yeah. I know other companies that do force people to stay in the same rooms together. It's not for me, but I get it. So one of the things that you've done, besides being that advocate, for your travelers and stuff, and taking the data that they're providing and engaging with them and kind of, modifying policy or updating things, you also are really in front of your travelers. And so tell me some of the things that you're doing to get you and your team, like literally in front of them so that they feel like they have somebody to talk to. Because a lot of times I think the travel manager is like the person behind the curtain, right? So how are you promoting visibility?
Well, and funny you should mention because I think a lot of questions we get also are, oh, you work for Agencia? No, I work for Tableau. But yes, so we host a travel fair each year, and we do this in conjunction with our company meeting. So it's an opportunity where everyone's together, everyone is there. We have a big booth. We get swag from all of our preferred vendors. As soon as somebody sees somebody else walking around with this thing, they're like, "Where'd you get that?" "Oh, it's over at the travel booth." We do fun things. We'll make them like show us the Agencia app on their phone, and then they'll get a raffle ticket, and we draw and all that sort of stuff. We created flyers that had T&E best practices on one side and a template for a paper airplane on the other side. So just trying to come up with little fun things, kind of silly. And then one thing that we did recently, and boy, I wish I would have done it sooner because it was such a success, was we hosted a TSA event here in our office. And we also did a one-day event at our all-company meeting to allow people out of state to take advantage as well. And we didn't even reimburse it. We just organized the event, and so many people were like, "This is great. It's so convenient." And that gives visibility to us, but also to our preferred airline. It was, sponsored by one of our preferred airlines. So those are some of the things we do. We try to engage with EAs. We do department meetings, quarterly newsletter. We reach out proactively to solicit for airline status upgrades. So whatever we can do, we try to get out there, and we're always trying to think of ways to get more out there and in front of our travelers.
That's great. It sounds like you're really, bridging the gap between, the travelers that are on the road and your team, and how, you guys can work together to create a better experience. Not that you're, dissolving policy and saying everyone go do whatever they want, but certainly
No,
making
not at
them
all.
understand. But some companies are doing that, and so
yeah, true.
There's a lot of people, especially tech companies. So it's really interesting that you're doing, kind of getting in front of your Tableau travelers. I think that's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Let's go to Cheryl now. So Cheryl, you're taking a little bit of a different approach to what you're doing. So tell me, first of all, high level about your program, what you guys are doing, how you operate and stuff like that, and then we'll kind of get to the nuts and bolts of what you're advocating and doing for your travelers.
Okay. Well, I feel like a little bit of slacker in the traveler engagement, getting in front of my travelers after hearing Jennie. Wow, I got a whole list of notes. But about DART, we, as Jennifer said earlier, DART's an international company. We manufacture single-use food service products. So the product everyone knows us by is the red Solo cup. We acquired Solo in 2012, and at that time, the number of our employees in our travel program both doubled in size. So we went from, each company had about 7,500 employees, and so again, the acquisition, we doubled overnight. Our travel spend doubled. We are about right now at about $7 million in air and another $5 million in the hotel and car space. And one thing that we did, and as Jennifer said earlier, we operate a CTD, an in-house travel agency. And so we rolled the Solo program into that, but then we started adding on these other additional services and became known as the Travel Services Group. We found that the variety in our program really allowed us to focus a little more on the traveler and the employee. And so employee engagements become very important to us in the success of our program. We have to keep in mind that we touch not only the employee travel, so the regular business travel, but also relocation. So we're focused as much on getting our business travelers to where they need to go, but also that new employee that's coming in, making sure that the move is successful and they're comfortable in their temporary housing, and that we're not placing an unnecessary burden on them during the process, because a lot of these relocating employees, they'll travel for us before they've ever made their house hunting trip. So the tone that we set in the very beginning actually carries over through this entire in-house structure that we have with everything that's under travel services.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're kind of the one-stop shop, right? I mean,
we kind of are. We like to joke and say that if it involves moving or housing people or making sure they're having fun, that's us.
All right. Well,
so
better than
we're in front.
Alternative.
Yeah. Right.
Cool. So you've got some new initiatives that you've embarked on this year that have been a big success, I think, for you. We want to hear about that and also how mobile's a big part of that. So talk to us a little bit about your new expense process that you're working through.
Well, and it is new. We had to do something with our expense process because it was really a big pain point for our travelers and, for managers and even us internally who had to manage it. After the acquisition of Solo, we found ourselves with 5 different ways people were completing expense reports. We had 2 different electronic systems, one for each company. We had people doing paper reports, reconciling against credit card statements, and then sending receipts directly to AP for reimbursement. The Solo side of the house had the IBM product, the Gears tool. So when IBM decided to sunset that, we weren't in a position yet to pull the trigger on a new expense system. So we moved all the frequent travelers to the DART platform from Solo, and then moved the others to paper reporting. And, as you can imagine, this was just terribly inefficient, and it created even more frustrations for their approving managers. So when we began looking at a new system, we knew that we had to not only automate the traveler data from our HR system, but it had to, of course, feed in our credit card data from the bank, and we wanted our travel data to be sent automatically. Like all of us, we just want our goal to be have an end-to-end system. So from the travel request to the payment of expenses after the trip. And, you could spend years going through and trying to find the perfect piece of technology. And, there's really not any such thing because the industry keeps changing faster and we can keep up. So we had our list of here's all the criteria, and we just decided that we were going to get as very close as we could to perfect as possible. And we think that's what we did. Our new system is now saving our travelers a significant amount of time preparing expense reports. Being able to take a photo of your receipt and just, have it automatically go into the app, or, if someone's working from a desktop, being able to get it in a multiple of different ways. We've also heard from the approving managers that the systems made it easier to approve reports, and with the increased visibility of expenses, they're able to manage their budget a little easier.
Gotcha. Do you think mobile is one of the key factors in the success of the launch of your new expense tool?
I believe it is on our sales division, especially. We have our manufacturing side of the house and we have the sales side of the house. We're still fairly new into the system. We're live in the U.S. with both manufacturing and sales. Canada and Mexico will be live within the next 60 days. And we have a goal of being implemented globally by the end of 2018. And we do really think that the mobile piece of it is going to be important. And it really was a milestone for DART, as it's our first true mobile application for travel.
Wow, that's great. So you've got some aggressive goals, by the end of 2018, having all of, it implemented globally. And it sounds like it's probably one of those, kind of that second step of engaging and servicing your travelers at a different level, because I've had experience in the CTD world, and as well as, what you're doing at DART. And I think one of the key successes in that CTD model is how engaged your agents that are servicing your travelers, how much more engaged they tend to be than sometimes in other models, because they're the people right down the street or down the block or around the corner in another building or whatever, or down the hall. But combining that level of service and now providing tools like this, would you say that you feel like you're just really kind of creating another level of engagement with your travelers?
I like to think so. we like to say that no one takes care of our travelers, better than their coworkers can. And in our case, it's the agents, it's the expense clerks now, it's our relocation group, and all of them have embraced the fact that they want to do the best that they can for their coworkers, and there's a sense of pride in that. But then they also build, somewhat of a personal relationship. They know them. They're talking to them week after week, and they know how hard it is being away.
Yeah. No, good points. So, you've got this new tool and this new technology, and I know that something that's very near and dear to my heart is the topic of data. And so tell me what you're thinking about doing with data and consolidation that's going to help you better engage with your travelers in the future.
Well, we're approaching this in a couple of different ways. What can it do for the department, for essentially me trying to manage all these moving pieces, but also the company. And then, what data can we get out of here that helps us improve the experience for the traveler? So we're looking at data consolidation, taking all of these different areas, the aviation fleet, the whole bit, where I have data coming in from all over the place and marrying it into a single solution so we can manage it. And the thought is managing the data from all of these different functions truly gives us a better overview of what our total cost is as a department, but also, it's critical to being a strategic partner within the business. So if I want to continue to recommend new programs, whether it's mobile or a change in any one of the function areas that I have to have this data, and I have to have, something that I can take out there. So it's really, we need to be strategic if we're going to make any more changes.
I think Jennie might be able to hook you up with someone on some data consolidation stuff.
I know. I was really excited.
So, I know there's
Absolutely.
varying of a bunch of different companies here. Yeah. That's great. Yes, I think that from my perspective, having a strategic vision, a data strategy is critical nowadays, because what's happening is we've got technology that's driving change, we've got our travelers' behaviors that are driving change, and we need to marry all of this information so that we can better understand what our policies are doing, if our supplier mix is right, and how we can, mold the program, because it's just changing. It's such a fast pace right now that we really need to be cognizant of how much data can really drive what's going on in our programs. So I think that's amazing. Good for you for actually having a strategy. I think we need as many buyers as possible to get on that bandwagon, and that will help drive some of that change in our industry. So one of the final things that you're focused on is safety and wellness. And I think that we often in the industry use safety and risk management and duty of care as a crutch for everything that we want to do. But I think your approach is a little different, because it's more about the traveler engagement. So share with us a little bit about what you're doing in this arena, and how you're making it more prevalent in your program, but from a softer approach.
Well, as we all know, our world has unfortunately changed, and our travelers are at much of a risk in the U.S. as they are in Europe or anywhere else they travel. So our CTD supervisor, Tina, she and I sat down with our risk management team, and we made a commitment to educate our travelers on the importance of our managed program in case of such an event. We're not talking about the money that we're losing if someone's booking their hotel outside of our program and paying more. The importance is really, listen, we just want to know where you are, because if something happens, I want to be able to locate you quickly and get you any services that you need. So what we're doing is just an in-depth look at the best way to book our travel outside of the U.S. Our CTD is mainly U.S. based. We do some, a lot of international through here, but like that inter-Europe travel or inter-country when it's outside of the U.S., we may not capture all of that. So we want to make sure that we're doing this the best way, and our travelers know the services that are available to them, not only through our travel department, but we partner with the International SOS. And, and then learn more about how we can provide the support that they need when they're outside of their home country. And that is one of our biggest pieces. We're focusing on everyone. So if you live in the UK and you come to the US, you're outside of your home country. It doesn't matter that we're based here. We want you to have all the tools that you need to navigate through any kind of an issue, whether you forgot your medication, your eyeglasses, whatever. So
Gotcha.
This is really a strategic program that's supported from our HR business partners and the executive team.
It makes sense. It makes sense. And do you think that through this process of educating and engaging with your travelers on this topic, that you're getting more adherence to policy? You're able to have better insight into your travelers if you need to. And is mobile a part of that at all?
It is, and yes, and yes. We're having more conversations now than ever with our travelers around. Around the ISOS program and our safety initiatives, which is then leading us to more conversations about booking within the program and why it's important. And then the mobile piece, ISOS has a mobile app that every employee can use on their phone. We have the travel tracker dashboard that again is compatible with a mobile device, but it's kind of hard to look at on a phone, but it's certainly available on a tablet. And mobile's going to be it is a huge piece. The first week that we had the travel tracker system was there was an incident, and we were trying to find 2 individuals, and I was out of town and Tina was out of town, and we were doing this all through a mobile device and pinging them and SMS messaging, and it works.
That's great. That's great. I think it's interesting, and I'm glad we kind of teed it up with mobile because I'm going to kind of talk about that next and the impact that it's having on the engaged traveler. So, Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing your story. It sounds like you've got an interesting model with your CTD, and you're kind of driving that change and just creating another level of service and expectation and experience for your traveler. And so hopefully I'm sure we'll get some good questions for you here later on. But I definitely, want to thank you for sharing your story. It's interesting, and we can see how, Cheryl's like, oh, I'm taking a lot of notes from Jennie, and it's about sharing right now. It's really about how we share what we do in our programs and adapt them to the individual programs, because every company is different. So thank you again, Cheryl. I'd like to remind everyone to, if you've got questions, to put them into the questions panel. I see we've got a couple coming through here, but don't wait till the very end. We're going to pick out, and hopefully in the last 5-7 minutes, talk a little bit about the questions that our panelists. So feel free to pop them in there. I want to talk about mobility. So in my program at DICOM and previous programs that I've managed, mobile has probably been, one of the forefronts of my programs. I think it's easy to say, I can focus on the booking tool and I can focus on expense, but I like to focus on what I call the consumption period of the trip, and all of that is really driven by mobile. We are seeing an uptick in mobile applications being delivered from our travel management companies. We're also seeing, white label products like Roadmap delivering, to the marketplace these different very interactive mobile tools around travel. And I think it's really important that, as we look at some of the challenges that we face, that the travel buyer faces, is how do we stay connected, during that part of the trip, the whole value chain there, and where our travelers are, how we have the least insight into what our travelers are doing. And so I think it's really important that people do a couple of things around mobility. Number one, you need to have a strategy around mobile. What are you doing to engage with your travelers on a mobile platform, right? Whether it's pushing out a TMC app, whether it's going with a white label program, whether it's just promoting your expense app, or whatever it might be. But I think it's important that travel buyers now probably should have started this 5 or 6 years ago, really get in front of mobility. And so one of the things that we're doing to help engage with our travelers more is taking data that we're aggregating from multiple sources and allowing it to feed information that we can then push out to our travelers. So it could look at something like this. Welcome to Atlanta. Take the MARTA and not a taxi to your hotel. Or welcome to this hotel in this city, reminder that, your room rate is $129, includes breakfast and internet. Things like that, all the way to the point where we're also focusing on trip disruption. So what could happen if my flight is delayed, or I'm going to misconnect, or it's been canceled? How can my TMC support trip disruption in that manner, that kind of everyday stuff that happens? We are also, around trip disruption, focusing on, we're in pilot right now with FlightSayer in order to kind of use some predictive analytics around trip disruption so that we're communicating and engaging with our travelers before a trip might be disrupted. So maybe the predictive analytics tell us that your trip is a 9, more than likely it's going to be canceled or delayed, and giving our travelers proactive information so that they can make a decision whether they want to, reaccommodate themselves, stay on the same flight, whatever it might be. So, so it's that messaging and it's that proactive communication with our travelers that has really, really been important. And then it goes back to what Cheryl was saying. It's about, if there is an incident, every agency in the world can tell you, I can give you a where are my travelers, but nobody knows where your travelers are. The only thing that knows where your travelers are is their phone, right? I mean, we have to acknowledge that that's really what's happening. They can tell us where they booked, but it doesn't mean that they're there, right? So we need to, focus on that. So we're really looking at, what is happening when the travelers are traveling, and kind of focusing on that piece of the trip for us. We've sort of mastered the booking and the expense, but now it's really the consumption period of the trip. Cheryl and Jennie, have you guys thought about doing anything in that arena, or is that kind of on the horizon for you? Either one of you can pop in. Cheryl?
This
Jennie?
This is Jennie. Mobile is, we are always thinking mobile first. Our TMC is designing their platform to be mobile first. Even yesterday, we had an experience where we engage with our travelers before they start, and we have a process worked out where they can do a booking like as a guest for their first trip, even before they're an employee. And this particular candidate, or he was already hired, but he was booking his first trip. He was trying to do it on his phone, and we realized that this particular process we've come up with actually doesn't work on the mobile. He's like, I'm trying to click the link and it's not doing what you said it would. So I mean, really, everything has to be designed around mobile first. And the challenge today is that there's almost too much out there for that. So trying to kind of, like, the idea, we're exploring roadmap as well, but the idea of that almost as a mobile aggregator. So it's white label, but it would call the other apps on your phone at the point where you need, they need to do something. But yeah, and then to your point about your phone knowing where you are, it's funny because I hear in various things like, oh, there's privacy issues around that, and where you're, having your company know where you are. We've given up so much privacy for all this personalization that I kind of chuckle when I hear that. It's true, but we've given it up to everyone else, to Facebook, to Twitter. It's like, well, why can't your company know where you are?
The privacy genie is out of the bottle, if you ask me. But I mean, we certainly with laws, regulations, and all that stuff. And in more countries, it's harder than others. But I can tell you this much: if they're in a time of need, they're going to want to know that you know where they are, so that you can help them. And we've seen that in a lot of instances, from ash clouds to serious incidences around the world. So thank you. That's very, very interesting. And I think you're right. We should be all building for mobile first. I think another interesting topic that I want to touch on, and then we're getting close to our time for questions and stuff, but is that there's other technologies that are going to start influencing the traveler engagement and experience. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but I think all the buyers and suppliers on the call should understand that, this concept of chatbots and artificial intelligence and machine learning, we are seeing a serious uptick in that in the industry where, all of a sudden your mobile app can interact and you can talk into your phone and say, your phone might say, I see your calendar, you're scheduled to go to San Francisco. Do you want to book your flights now? Oh, and you were there last month. Do you want to go on the same schedule? Do you want to stay at the same hotel? And so a much more interactive mobile type setting where we're using technologies like a Siri or whoever else can talk to you on your phone, that can also look at things like your calendar and your past travel and your preferences, and then kind of start to create almost this booking tool policy, of one type thing that says this is what makes the most logical sense for Jennifer to do on this next trip. It's going to get her there in time. It's the most cost effective. It takes into her preferences. And, also adding things like, I see you've booked your air to San Francisco, but you haven't booked a hotel yet. Can I help you with that? So it's about getting people more engaged, through technology that can help drive compliance, that can, create a better experience for your travelers. And also all the data behind what the technologies can generate certainly can influence us as travel buyers to better understand the needs of our travelers, their patterns, their behaviors, what they're doing, and kind of drive, changes within our managed travel program, right? So we want to embrace this technology. I'd like to end kind of the topic before we go to questions, and ask each of you, and we'll start with Cheryl, tell me where you're going next. What is the future of travel engagement and experience for your program, or how you see it in the industry?
Well, I think that, for us, we've been pretty conservative on mobile for a lot of years, and that's just our culture, and that's fine. But, it's going to continue to become more important with some of the things that we want to push out. And then around the traveler engagement piece, it will then, as long as I can get my data consolidation, it's really going to be looking more towards a personalized experience for them. Meaning that they don't all want to be shoved in the same box. If we have options in an area between brand A and brand B, they'd like to choose that. And, have it be more based on their personal preferences. So taking it from, here's what the policy is, and let's look at our policy and see if it still makes sense. And that's
Gotcha.
kind of where I see our next target.
Excellent. Jennie, how about you? Where are you going next, and how do you see the future of engagement and experience for your travelers?
Well, I really hope that in 5 years we're not having this same conversation, or at least that the conversation has changed. Because I do feel like I said, in the 5 years I've been at Tableau, I do feel like some of these conversations we're still having, and these things were on the horizon 5 years ago, and they're still on the horizon. Granted, I'm actually seeing live demos now, so that's promising. But corporate travel, the pace of innovation is slow, and there's so many components that integrate together, and there are just components that are built on very ancient aging technology, so that everything kind of has to be shored up so that it can work together. But we are constantly seeking the best tools to enhance the traveler experience, and I really feel it's up to us, the travel buyers. We have to demand innovation. We can't just kind of listen and go, oh, okay, like, what are you really pushing all of our suppliers? What are you doing around this, and show me. And then encouraging them to work together, because one thing I am seeing is all these different technologies are being put out there. We don't want to add to the chaos. Everybody does kind of seem to want to be an end-to-end solution, and that's not necessarily optimal. You're not going to rip out a tool just to replace it with something else, from another of your own suppliers. So really encouraging and fostering innovation and getting these technologies to work together and integrate with each other, not just in their own space.
Right. No, it's a very, very good point because we do operate in this industry so siloed that it makes it hard to do that, right? But yet the technology is out there. There's APIs that can connect anything nowadays. So, yeah, I totally agree that we need to be, not having the same conversation in 5 years. Please, I can't talk about it for 5 more years. So, so I want to open up now to some questions that we have from the audience. The first one is to Cheryl. So, in the CTD, do you think it's harder to implement a lot of tools and technologies since you have to do it all by yourself as opposed to having a TMC support those initiatives?
It can be. And I'm very fortunate. We have a very strong IT department that has the resources to be able to help us. But unfortunately, they're also helping everyone else. So it can be difficult in getting on a schedule to get tools implemented. One of the nice things with the CTD is it gives me the opportunity, if I do want to contract with a TMC for software or other tools, I can do that. I have that flexibility. But I think one of the biggest things is just the time that it takes to research tools that are changing faster than we have a chance to even go through the RFP process. By the time we got through our expense tool and we were starting to implement, they already had another piece come out that it's like, oh, I like that. And I'm like, no, focus on what you have here. So, it can be a challenge in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it moves so fast that I think it's struggles for a lot of buyers to keep up with the technology. Certainly that's a challenge. So Jennie, a question came about kind of the logistics of how you determine the personal portion of a bleisure trip. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on how you determine that? There's a couple questions from the audience on that.
Yeah, no, I think there is a lot of room for improvement in this space. We're just doing the best we can. The fact of the matter is it's happening. And a lot of times, I can see the questions that are coming in, and it's kind of what they're seeing that you don't know until you dig and go like, oh, wait a minute. But again, back to this, engaging with the traveler concept, if it's costing us less. So another question came in, about the tax implications of it and the insurance, and if we are not spending any more money or we're spending less money, then there's no implications there. Now the insurance piece, just yesterday I had my car company reach out to me trying to reach a traveler who had gotten in an accident. And then they finally were able to reach the traveler, and they responded back and they said, oh no, he was actually that part of his trip was personal, so he's going to use his own personal insurance. So that took care of itself on its own. But there, there needs to be improvements here, and I don't know what they are, whether it's having a box come up, on the online booking tool. Is any part of this trip personal? We are looking out for those things. We're reviewing, and these things do come up in audit. So the process that we have come up with requires the traveler, if they're incorporating any personal travel, they have to document it. They don't have to send it to us. They have to document it, have it approved by their manager. They have to show the screenshots of what they were going to do versus what they actually did. Keep that on file so that, if it comes up in an audit and anybody asks them for it, they have it at the ready, or they have to be willing to explain. And we kind of go back to that trusting the traveler piece, that, if someone's really going to do something out of the ordinary in our system, they're gonna get caught, they wouldn't. We have to hope they're really not going to risk their job, to go to Hawaii. So we operate from that perspective.
Right. Well, trust but verify, right?
Correct. Trust and verify. That's literally our CFO's motto. Yeah.
There you go. So a question came in for me. So it's your primary focus of the trip is that most travel managers have little, or is a piece of it have little insight into. Why is it my focus, and do your travelers like you being in their business? So that's an interesting question, because I think our travelers wish we were less in their business. But really what it is for me is it's about enabling my travelers to have a better experience, and feeling like they have a voice, right? So if I'm utilizing the data to proactively send messages to my travelers, to get them to understand that we're doing this for their best interest, then they feel like, all right, yeah, she is someone that I need to go to first. I do a lot of upfront conversations around policy and data and supplier relations and things like that with the travelers. So it's a bigger picture conversation that I'm having all the time with the key stakeholders in the organization. So trying to get them to understand that, reminder messages or trip disruption messages and stuff are there to ensure that they have that better experience. So it's a lot of detail, right? I mean, it takes a lot of people to help with that. It takes a lot of time. It doesn't happen overnight. But it's really about the engagement from a company's business objectives down to, that consumption period for a traveler. So really that's why it's the primary focus for me. I think I've got one general question. We have a couple other questions that if we haven't responded to your question that you posted in there, we will certainly follow up. I'll direct it to whoever is to have them respond to you individually. But I do want to make a couple of notes that we are recording this session, and the deck and the session will be available. We will send you, logistically, we'll figure out if we're going to send it out to all the attendees that we have today, so that you've got a copy of it. It'll also be posted on what is a very, very exciting new announcement that I want to take a minute to make, which is around Business Travel Executive, the magazine itself, and how it is engaging in a different way with travel buyers and suppliers. And so I'm happy to announce there's a brand new website just launched at businesstravelexecutive.com. The website, you're going to be able to interact with, news stories, content, special reports, actual issues of the magazine for both, buyers and suppliers that are in the managed travel space that can really take a deeper dive into a lot of this content and stuff. And so we also are now social and mobile, so good for us. You can follow us and tweet us at BTE Executive. Follow us on Facebook at BTE Execs, and LinkedIn page is Business Travel Executive Magazine. So we are actively engaged with the social media platforms, so feel free to follow, like, all that good stuff with us, tweet us, whatever. We also have our BTE Think Tank, which is a section on the website about that, where you can actually engage with a suite of buyers. We have 7 buyers that are on the Think Tank for Business Travel Executive Magazine, so you can pose questions. We're going to be doing some polling, so a lot more interaction going on the website. So on that note, we are down to our last minute. I want to thank our attendees, Cheryl, and our panelists, Cheryl and Jennie. I want to do another shout out to our sponsor, Chrome River, and Business Travel Executive Magazine for making this webinar happen. And thanks for all the attendees. We know that your lives are busy, and that we appreciate the fact that you took some time out to hear more about traveler engagement, and look for some upcoming webinars in the future, probably another one in the fall. So we appreciate everyone's attendance, and I want to wish you a happy day, and everyone take care. Thanks again.